What up, my fellow Knicks fans? This is your guy Marcellus Ease, and don't panic quite yet. Now, this season has been an up and down roller coaster, especially involving the referees. In this past game, Julius Randle, the call did look like a travel at first, but then again, it was a bit of a gray area because if you looked at it in slow motion, the ball was blocked and it was slightly coming out of Julius's hand, and he did not have full possession of the ball. But Scott Foster and the crew referees surprisingly did not go to the replay. And that is a question that a lot of fans should be asking. Now, like I said before, this whole season has been an up and down roller coaster involving the refs. We've seen Donovan Mitchell make complaints about the refs in the game against Philadelphia. And also this season when the Clippers played the Bucks, there were a lot of questionable calls in that game, especially due to the fact that the Clippers only went to the free throw line 6 times. And you can also look at the game with Devin Booker versus the Lakers, the way he was ejected. That was very questionable. And also when the Celtics played the Pelicans in overtime, the referees had to go to the replay center so many times, it basically turned a 5-minute overtime to almost an hour of basketball. Now the Knicks, because of their reputation, especially among the media, have always had to earn extra respect from the refs. Remember, there's been a couple of times this season where we had a lot of questionable calls. There was even a play on January 2nd against Indiana where Austin Rivers was called for stepping out of bounds, but if you look at the replay, his feet were nowhere near the out of bounds line, which was very strange to begin with. But in this matchup against the Nets, there were a lot of questionable calls already to begin with, especially going down the 2-minute stretch. The Knicks did force a jump ball, which was already overturned because originally it was called to be a foul. So I'm wondering if Scott Foster and his crew did not want to be wrong twice about some of the calls that they were making under the 2 minutes. And best believe, due to the fact that the Knicks do get dragged among the media, their reputation, especially among the referees, is hurt. Because remember, Tim Donahue, the referee that was caught fixing some of the NBA games, was doing a lot of his point spread fixing with Knicks games. Because I guess he figured that the league wouldn't come down because they figured that the Knicks was a bad team anyway, and their reputation was being dragged through the ground. This is how much subconsciously the refs don't respect certain teams, and especially when it comes to the Knicks. So not only we're fighting that uphill battle, also across the league, a lot of questionable things are happening starting from the G League with the referees. How they're being trained, who's doing the hiring, because right now the league is going to have to look at some of their protocols because a lot of referees that are in charge of the hiring process, who to vet, who to, pass through and make sure that they go up to the next level. There's a lot of friends and families working among officials. And a lot of the officials tend to be from the same area. You guys check out this segment, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Here we go. It was New York versus New York last night. The Nets getting the best of the Knicks in Brooklyn, but the win wasn't without some controversy. Julius Randle called for a travel, although it appeared Kyrie Irving stripped him of the ball. Randle, not happy with the call, was held back by teammates, and he voiced his frustration.
See right there, that looked like a full travel. But if you look at the replay, Kyrie definitely blocked him, and he did not have possession of the ball for at least a millisecond. So I'm wondering if that right there allowed him to come back down without bouncing the ball.
Max Kellerman, were the Knicks robbed by a bad call?
Well, I could say they were robbed by them not looking at the replay because that should have definitely been reviewed.
They did. The Knicks got robbed last night. And don't tell me about how many plays there are in a basketball game and you have chances. I get all that. But let's be realistic with what we're dealing with. See those dudes on the Knicks like Julius Randle? They're there as consolation prizes because the Knicks couldn't get the Nets guys to take their money. That's why they have Julius.
Now, this has nothing to do with what the fuck we're talking about. Once again, Max Kellerman, what are you doing right now? You're way off topic. You're way out of bounds with this.
Randle, they have the leftovers, the Knicks, and are trying to make do. The Knicks have no margin for error, which is what Thibodeau said after the game. Mind you, not that I have any feelings for the Knicks anymore, as you know. No feelings for the Knicks. I'm just saying, the reality is, without a margin for error, you cannot afford, especially playing that Brooklyn offense, to have calls go against you. Now, what really bothers...
They were dealing with that the whole game, especially Frank Ntilikina. The refs were sweating him like a motherfucker, and he had no breathing room at all.
Me, guys, and the reason I say robbed is this. The refs were challenged on a bad call, right before that play where they trapped, because, by the way, the Knicks, they're trapping full court? What is this, 1986, and Rick Pitino is the coach?
The Knicks defense in the last 2 minutes of that game was so intense. My God. I mean, I was watching that game like, wow, I could not really believe this was our team. But our defense sometimes can get to another whole level.
Trapping in the NBA, and it's kind of working. Boy, that's a hustling defense right there. I got to give it to them. They're playing with passion. They're connected, the whole thing. So they challenged the call because it was a turnover, not a foul when they trapped Joe Harris. And the refs, to their credit, reviewed it and said, yup, we got it wrong, and overturned the call. So let me ask you something. Why don't you review the call when Julius Randle, obviously that was a bad whistle?
Bingo. Right there. Why was that play not reviewed? Isn't it part of the league's protocol to review close plays under, I believe, 2 minutes? What's going on here? That's the real question Scott Foster should have been asked.
Yes, Kyrie got his hand on it. Yup, he stripped him. Nope, it was not up and down. It was not a travel. So, by the way, review the call and tell me that I'm wrong.
See, right there, it's just too quick. It's way too quick to even tell. But once you look at the replay, Randle didn't even have possession for the ball for at least 1 to 2 milliseconds.
About that, but to not review it right after a review overturned a call, why wouldn't you do that? Are you embarrassed by the fact that the first review worked? Is it hubris on the part of the refs? Does the league not want a game where you have to scrap for every point? It's not as aesthetically pleasing?
That's why his hand up in the air, if you look at it, it went right to left. Almost like he was trying to pass the ball, but he wasn't. I believe he was just trying to catch it and make sure it was in his hand. That's why he was so confused when he came back down. But Randle got to make quicker decisions. The Knicks in crunch time, what is our identity? That's one of the biggest things we're going to have to answer this season. Who do we go to? Have Julius Randle and RJ Barrett had enough reps in crunch time to be confident in their decision making?
It's just so messed up that a team that's as scrappy as this Knicks team is, and you know me, I'm not a Knicks fan anymore. But at any rate, against...
Lies. Yes, you are. That's why you're smirking like that. Max, once a Knick is always a Knick.
A team as talented. You see, Stephen A., the show that Kyrie put on again, as this Nets team scraps and scrapes and claws all the way there, and it's going to be a game, and maybe Randle sends it to overtime, and maybe the Knicks win. But to be denied that based on not just a bad whistle, but the refusal to review the play is a robbery. Knicks got robbed.
There's so much to teach you about the game of basketball. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I'm going to try to just explain this to you, okay? Julius Randle has a minimal amount of time. He goes up to attempt a three-point shot. Kyrie Irving gets his hand on the ball. You're supposed to drop the ball before your feet comes down on the ground.
Stephen A. Smith, that's if you have possession of the ball. If it gets blocked and it's not even in your hands and you have to catch it again, that's not a travel.
Otherwise, it's a travel. Period. He held on to the ball and came down with both feet before he let the ball go. That is clearly in the rule book. It is a travel, and that is that. But having said that, let me be very, very clear as a diehard Knicks fan who isn't a turncoat, a trader, who should have his New York tag stripped, okay? Get out of town. I told you to get out of town. I told you to get out of town, okay? You're a traitor, but that's all right.
Stephen A. Smith calling out Max Kellerman. Look at Max's face. He's like, uh-oh, he got me. I'm still a fan, though.
Because we don't need you. We don't need people like you, Max Kellerman. Knicks fans, we deal here. Let me say, you're pathetic. Pathetic. But here's the deal.
Max Kellerman is like an ex-girlfriend that's trying to sabotage you and the new girl. Secretly wants you back, doing everything to sabotage you, but at the end of the day, everyone knows how you really feel.
I was very, very happy last night, despite the fact that they lost the game. There were so many elements in this game that made me... Hold on, where's my tissue? I'm getting emotional right now. I mean, it was so special. First of all, Max, they were down 18. I got it. Thank you so much, but I got my one. But I need both because it's an emotional moment for me right now. Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me right here.
And Stephen A. Smith should be crying like that because he should have been so impressed by Julius Randle. He was trading buckets with Kyrie and just the Brooklyn Nets overall in the last 2 minutes. Julius Randle was pretty much near perfect until that last play, which they should have went to the replay for, but he definitely did his thing. So he's not scared of the big moment. I'm just hoping that he gets more reps so in crunch time, he can make quicker decisions.
My Knicks, first of all, Max, they were down 18, but they scratched and they called the #1 defense in the NBA. #1 is the New York Knicks. Now, I understand they're only scoring 105.3 points a game, okay? That ranks like 28th. But they're surrendering the exact same amount of points, which is #1. This defense is scrappy. I saw Spike Lee there. It reminded me of the days when the Knicks were relevant and Spike Lee was there cheering them on. Come on, let's go, let's go. It was a beautiful thing to see. I saw my man Worldwide West, William Wesley, behind the Knicks bench going bananas when a foul was called against Frank Ntilikina.
Now, what Stephen A. Smith said about the Knicks being relevant, oh yeah, they're still relevant right now. Even though the Nets are right now considered to be in a championship season, they are relevant. Now, if you guys take a look at the Daily News and the New York Post, look at the back pages. Everything is about the New York Knicks. That says a lot. The Nets, once again, they have some of the best players in the league on their squad, but yet the Knicks are sort of in the middle stages of a rebuilding mode, but yet they capture the headlines. Just overall, the energy of the cities with the Knicks. So I believe when Stephen A. Smith's talking about the Knicks' relevancy, I believe he's talking about it from a media standpoint because their business model is pretty much covering the biggest stars in the league. And right now, the Knicks don't have that type of cachet as far as stars, but in the city that they're in, they are definitely the most relevant. And we look at the net worth of the team, it tells you how relevant they really are.
He didn't like that. He was very, very upset about that. We know Thibodeau is feisty, okay? And then to see Julius Randle, although he did travel, and I believe it was the right call for him to have attitude, for him to be
Look at that three-point shot Julius is taking right there. That was a big shot. Julius was definitely doing his thing in the 2-minute crunch time.
For him to have to be held back. Even Wes and the rest of his crew was trying to hold him back. Why, Max? Why? Because they had a chance. They're fighting. They're scrapping. And I'm going to tell you something right now, Max Kelvin. I'm going to tell you something right now because this is very, very important to say. I don't believe this anyway. Remember, I picked Brooklyn to win the chip. All right, I'm on the record. I picked Brooklyn to win the chip because I don't think Anthony Davis is going to be held 100% for the rest of the year. And I think that's the only chance to stop the Brooklyn Nets from winning it all, okay? Right now, they're the favorites. If the New York Knicks were to meet the Brooklyn Nets in the play.
Well, let me stop Stephen A. Smith right there. We don't know what's really going on with Kevin Durant because that injury that they said that he has, it's very similar to the injury that Golden State said he had when he first went down with the Achilles. So it'll be very interesting how this Kevin Durant situation plays out right now. I don't know if he's fully 100%.
Do you have any idea how much pressure would be on Brooklyn? They had everything to lose. Could you imagine you chose, this is the Mecca, and instead of choosing the New York Knicks in Madison Square Garden, okay, you chose Brooklyn. And you go there, you go. I'm not sweating it. I think Sean Marks is an exceptional executive. I think Steve Nash is doing a hell of a job. I think with Steve Nash,
AKA Mike D'Antoni. That's a Mike D'Antoni team right there. Steve Nash is just a figurehead because he softens up the Nets' image because they don't have likable players on their team. They have Kyrie, Kevin Durant, who goes back and forth with the media, and James Harden, who this season kind of made himself the unlikable guy. But Steve Nash is pretty much the likable guy that serves as a middleman between the Nets and the media. So he's a nice little figurehead. And also, you got to look at the NBA issues with the black coaches not getting hired. I don't think the Nets wanted to go from D'Antoni and his failures in Houston to quickly getting a top-notch job in Brooklyn. So they went with Steve Nash.
The staff led by Mike D'Antoni is doing a hell of a job.
I bet you Dr. J doesn't get hassled by security at Barclays.
That's right. All of that's true. But let me tell you this. If the New York Knicks were to play the Brooklyn Nets, and that became a series. Could you imagine the pressure on Brooklyn? Could you imagine if KD and Kyrie...
Can you imagine if KD doesn't really play or isn't 100% healthy? But anyway, all those games in the playoffs, if the Knicks did end up playing the Nets, would be home games for the Knicks. And there would be no pressure on the Knicks. But there definitely would be pressure on the Nets.
Kyrie, could you? I'm just saying.
That's without KD last night, brother.
I totally understand.
That's with Emmanuel quickly getting taken out.
I know.
Once again, Max, we'll see if KD is not in a similar situation as Anthony Davis. It may not be as severe, but something is definitely wrong over there.
And everybody at the, you know, what's up with substitutions, Tim?
I'm asking you to fantasize. I'm asking you to fantasize for a second. Can I be allowed to fantasize?
Go ahead.
If the New York Knicks turn that into a series, and we actually had headlines. Let's say, for example, hypothetically, the series was tied 2-2, and Brooklyn had to worry. I mean, oh my God, you're talking about a nightmare that would never. I mean, could you imagine if KD and Kyrie would have lost to the Knicks in the playoffs?
Well, I'll say it'll be more likely if it was just James Harden and Kyrie and KD was still out. James Harden, it seems like, you know, when the going gets tough and the game gets pressurized, especially in the playoffs, he tends to fold. Now, if you look at the game last night with the Brooklyn Nets and the Knicks, Kyrie was making most of the big shots down the stretch.
Oh, my God.
That's why it's fantasy. You're living in fantasy.
It's totally a fantasy because I picked the Brooklyn Nets to win it all.
Let me say something.
Oh, my Lord.
Your whole thing about...
I love what I'm seeing.
Your whole thing about you want to let go of the ball before your feet come down, the other player
it's a rule, man.
touches it. You can't,
it's a rule.
But the point is they didn't even review it.
It doesn't matter. What's there to review?
Yes, it does.
I saw it.
Now, there was something to review. This is the very few times I agree with Max Kellerman. They definitely should have reviewed it because it's according to the league's protocols to review close plays under the 2 minutes. So there definitely was a deflection, and Randle did not have possession of the ball for at least 1 to 2 milliseconds. So Max definitely has a point right there. I don't know why Stephen A. Smith doesn't get it.
Did you see that? He came down with both feet with his ball in his hand. With the ball in his hand.
Review the play.
Yo, did he just say with his balls in his hands?
Just review the play.
But why?
The official.
Why? I don't think it's necessary.
Let's watch that play again.
Look at it. He comes down and the ball is in his hands, clearly.
Yeah, after Kyrie
that is a travel.
After Kyrie touched the ball.
Doesn't matter. He's got to come to. He's got to let go of the ball. He's got to let go.
Now, you guys got to show a much slower replay than that. You're not going to get it. It looks like a travel right there, but when you slow it down, the ball was definitely deflected, and he lost the ball. That's why he went right to left in his hand movement while he was in the air.
He did let go of the ball. He caught the ball from Kyrie.
See, right there, he goes right, and then he's going to swing left because he didn't have possession of the ball.
Well,
thank you. Yeah, that is a travel.
Maybe. That might be a travel.
That's a really bad angle. I don't know who the fuck is doing the replay over there, but that's a really bad angle. They're showing the Knicks no justice right there.
That might be Max.
But at the end of the day, Julius Randle has to make quicker decisions. I mean, he wasn't really even open right there to even be up in the air. He sort of reverted back to the old Julius Randle for just that one play where he used to be up in the air and he used to be trying to make decisions while he was in the air. Either he was going to pass the ball or shoot it. That tends to be a habit that younger point guards or just younger players in the league that first come in tend to have.
Matt.
The refs didn't even review it.
You know, I know my boxing.
Yeah.
But I would never, ever think that I know more boxing than you.
It's a robbery.
It's time for you to fall back to take the lesson I'm giving you, bro. This is basketball. And I'm telling you, it's a travel.
Upon further review, it did look like his feet came down first.
Thank you very much. It's a travel.
But review it.
Okay? No.
Max has a point right there. It has to get reviewed. It's according to the league's protocols. Once again, the lack of respect for the Knicks, especially among the referees, is an issue. It's not just the Knicks. It tends to be a lack of respect for younger teams that have younger players, and they don't get calls. They don't get the benefit of the doubt, and it's definitely a major issue. I mean, once again, Tim Donahue, who got caught fixing the games, he basically was doing a lot of his fixing during Knicks games.
Need to review that. Waste time.
By the way,
it's a beautiful moment. New York Knicks.
They reviewed the trap.
Look at me. New York Knicks.
They reviewed the trap because they were wrong. See, Max is pointing out how the officiating was pretty much messed up throughout that game. The calls that Frank Ntilikina was getting, and also they were already wrong 23 seconds prior. So it is what it is.
You're very good. You're very good, you. You're making me proud right now.
Oh, my God.
That feistiness,
It
that
would almost
fight.
be
That's what I'm talking about here. I'm very proud.
It would almost be
I'm very
something
proud of my Knicks
if they
right now.
never
I'm very
signed
proud.
KD. Tom
Tom Thibodeau. Tom
If
Thibodeau.
KD didn't exist, this could actually be something.
Tom Thibodeau.
I know.
Well, KD might not exist because the Brooklyn Nets are definitely hiding something. The way he was pulled from that game, I don't think it was just COVID. They saw something in a scan or something because they're giving the same excuse the Warriors were given when KD first had that Achilles injury. It may not be as severe, but there's definitely something wrong with KD.
Scott
Stephen A,
Perry,
you're excited.
Worldwide
You might
West,
not
Leon
even
Rose,
need an
I'm
LA
very
break.
proud.
If the Knicks got good, you might be able to spend a whole month in New York with us.
You know
I
what?
love how excited you are.
I will come back.
All right.
I will come back from LA.
We gotta go.
Well, it is what it is. Once again, the NBA, they're going to have to do something with the refs, and that's starting with the G League and the people that are in charge of hiring the new referees and training them. Because right now, I don't believe the league is giving enough resources to make sure that these guys come up well enough to be prepared for the speed of the NBA. And also, you know, Mark Cuban definitely made references to the referees just hiring their buddies. So there's a lot of nepotism going on as far as the hiring of friends and family. You know, Mark Cuban gave a perfect example of how one guy is a retired cop and he's hiring a bunch of former cops to be referees. And there's a lot of family member referees in the league. So it seems like on the ground level, the league is going to have to make a lot of major adjustments because it's starting to affect their product. And especially younger teams and teams that have reputations that have been dragged through the mud, like the Knicks, among the media, is definitely hurting them also. So it is what it is.